Alex Answer here, October 11th, 2015. In this video, I am going to discuss the American refugee experience, which is something that millions of Americans are going through. Of course, it's not just those of us in this country going through the refugee experience. We're doing so now without bombs dropping. We're doing so now without concentration camps. But we are doing so in a climate and environment in which being poor is being criminalized. Living in your RV is being criminalized in more and more cities across the United States. I wasn't expecting Costilla County to join that list of counties banning or attacking off-the-grid living, but it's exactly and essentially why I'm doing this video from a parking space, a public space in Alamosa, as opposed to the private land that I and a few friends were just driven off of with recent tickets for living illegally in a RV. They're no longer issuing camping permits. Yes, for years they've been issuing permits to live in your RV. And even though they haven't changed the code in Costilla County, they're still moving forward with their legal actions. And nothing's really being done about it despite the media storm. No lawyers from Denver or elsewhere have appeared to offer their assistance. There is that ongoing story, developing story, Operation Patriot Rally Point. I don't know how legit that is. But what people do need to understand is that the American refugee experience is taking place now in the United States, involving millions of people and growing. And there's many different reasons why people have taken to the road. Economics is one. Health is another. Living in the city today is not a healthy experience, being surrounded by the things that we are surrounded by, technologies and the programming of the people. In addition to that, some people are going off-grid or choosing the nomadic lifestyle because ultimately this is something that our ancestors have done. They would travel from place to place, they would migrate there and start a new family. In this particular day and age, people are instinctually driven to hit the road and see the mountains, see the canyons, see the forests. They are driven to see the beauty of this country. And so in this day and age, instead of a wagon with a horse, people travel in a RV. And they empty out, by the way, their human waste at RV parks. Things of that nature. Is also knowledge about compost toilets if someone's fully off the grid. There's even information out there that's been around for years, how to turn human waste into methane, but that's another subject. There are some people that know nothing about off-the-grid living, efficient building techniques. All they know is codes, rules, and regulations, control, power, permits, fees, money. Money. And so we see these unique forms of classism taking place here in this country and around the world. And a lot of ignorance as to how people live off the grid and whether or not it's contaminating the earth if they're not hooked into the utility system or have a traditional septic system. That's a little bit of the backdrop why we've been pushed out of Costilla County is the lack of extra funding to the tune of thousands of dollars to have that extra infrastructure built into a traditional off-the-grid, middle of nowhere, high desert land. Not typical for seeing major structures, large homes, typical for actually seeing earthbag homes, RVs, teepees, underground homes, things they really don't want, Costilla County. So this war on off-the-grid living is dovetailed with the war on homelessness, and it's not a good situation where you have people that are disconnected from each other. And as I speak, I have seen the same police car drive by for the 5th time. So I think at this point it's safe to say that my RV might be watched pretty closely for whatever reason. Part of the American refugee experience is being afraid of police. We're being concerned about police. We're keeping a watch out for police. And that's usually typical for life in the city, not typical for, trying to live off the grid in Costilla County. So I get out of Costilla County to avoid that nonsense and to take the heat off the particular residence that I was staying at. Only to come here and see a police officer driving back and forth, and there he is, again, about 100 feet up from me. And so it's constant stress. It's feeling like a Native American. And me using YouTube and using these new technological tools to also share my philosophies, my outside-the-box ideas, it's a fairly new thing for humanity, for RVers. I see that cop now getting ready to come out. And so with technology, people can document their experiences. They can record their encounters with police. They can go down to city council meetings and talk about their issues with homelessness being criminalized. And with technology and YouTube, they have a voice now, whereas years ago, people were being picked off one by one, and that's still happening in Costilla County. The technology and YouTube video coverage is a game changer. It is a game changer to be able to document these things taking place. Now, I don't know what's going to come about from this cop going back and forth, because there's issues with expired tags, and I'm in Alamosa to actually take care of that before I go to my next destination. It's important for me to take care of that so the stress of that is no longer on my back. People manage the stress of dealing with city life and the American refugee experience to different degrees. The best thing for someone to do is to have a goal, a passion that's independent from, the workplace or, money. Thinking about, I got to get money so I can have this. Got to have something you're passionate about. Solar panels and computers and internet access in some areas is cheap enough for the average American nomad living out of their vehicle, be it an RV or something else, or even someone without a vehicle. Even with a cell phone and an iPad in today's day and age, somebody can record a video and even edit that video and put it online. And so we need to really document what's taking place, because with YouTube and the internet in real time, people are seeing what is happening in another area instantaneously. And the problem is there isn't an organization out there, political or otherwise, that is there for the American refugee. The American refugee without a permanent residence on a limited income is not a demographic that politicians care about. And so we need to be thinking outside the box of congressmen and Supreme Court judges coming to our aid, whether it be a political party or an organization, a nonprofit organization that brings people together and provides coverage of current events in America, to where there could be a story brewing. It could be Costilla County, it could be somewhere else. And an effective organization can get that story out to the media. An effective organization would have legal help and representation. Lawyers would be on board, and they would be providing their services, or at least educating people about their rights. What is constitutional and what is code? What is the difference between code and the Constitution? So I really want to put this out there, that the American refugee experience now encompasses millions of people. And out of those millions of people, you have able thinking people that are able to do something more than just maybe run their own business or YouTube channel out of their RV, but actually help organize and support the national movement, international movement, if you will. On the international level, though, you have people that are violently being pushed out of their homes and out of their countries and being thrust into other countries, when in some of these cases they would rather live a safe life with their wives and children and not be hated and thrown into these controlled situations like many of the immigrants are in Europe. And now they're hated. And people from the Middle East are hated worldwide because of this refugee experience, as if they're to blame for all these stage wars. But unfortunately, that's the message that's been sent. Don't think the American people are any different. There's plenty of people here in the United States that have never been homeless or never had to live in their vehicle. And so when they see other people living in freedom, they see them as welfare recipients automatically, without realizing some people have figured out how to work from home. And basically they're hating on that. They're upset. They don't think that someone else should have the ability to run a blog and make money doing that, or make money from AdSense, or be engaged in sales off a blog, or other forms of independent work, freelance work. So there's an aspect of the slave thing, and that's where you see the thousands of haters on certain channels that deal with freedom and liberty and off-the-grid living, because they don't like seeing someone else accomplish what they can never accomplish. And a lot of Americans have been conditioned by slave groupthink to think that if I have to abide by certain forms of slavery, if I'm a slave, you should be a slave. You don't have a right to escape slavery if I haven't figured out how to escape slavery. So they're not interested in hearing our tips on how we pick the locks of the cage. So when you see the thumbs down on a lot of these videos from these big channels, that's that slave archon consciousness that's shining and channeling through some of those YouTube commenters. The question is, where is all of this going to be going in the coming years, with the off-grid lifestyle being attacked by certain counties, and for RV living, stealth camping, to be something that is increasingly criminalized as more cities try to push out people that have traveled there that have already been pushed out. So we're being pushed out from one spot to another to another. Where is this going to end up if the economy gets so bad that those already on the bottom can't afford registration, insurance, or gas, and they're stuck somewhere? What is the next step? How can Americans work together to prevent a situation where someone's forced to go to a homeless shelter or forced to go to some sort of a homeless reservation to live amongst a lot of other people with serious problems, drug problems, mental problems? It's not healthy to be boxed into a homeless shelter, and it's not humane. Even when you have dogs in a humane society shelter, they each have their own cell. And you know what? Having your own cell in a homeless shelter would sure beat sleep along someone else who's pissed and shit their pants, who's babbling themselves and threatening you with a existent or non-existent knife, maybe threatening you with a straw, saying they'll send you straight to hell if you keep fucking with them. And there are certain homeless people that are suffering from certain mental disorders because they haven't had a home or a shower. And so some of them are in a state to where everyone around them, including other homeless, is a potential threat. And so that's why it's difficult to be thrust into situations, and that's why it's not nice or even intelligent to suggest that people go on welfare or go to a homeless shelter. People should be encouraged to build their own home, to build their own enterprise, to build their own business, to build their own YouTube channel, to build their own website, to make their own food, to learn how to sew. Let's develop skills again. I always thought in Portland, if they really cared about the homeless, they would have a building center to where those able men that want to work with something on their hands, with their hands, instead of drink themselves half to death because they got nothing better to do. If they really cared about human beings, they would offer places for people to build stuff and actually sell it on the internet. If they're going to have prisoners selling jeans, if they're going to have prisoners selling other products where they're working for $1 a day, why is it difficult for major cities and even smaller cities to develop building centers to where men can build something, sell it on a website or internet, and they can use that money to better their situation? Many governments don't care about the homeless. And I'll tell you what, Matthew Valdez said in the papers in regards to Costa County, it gets really cold here, so a lot of people don't know what they're in for. So that's one of the reasons why people should freeze then in the city and risk having issues with the police, parking in front of people's homes. See, the city of Alamosa and surrounding areas here should know what Costa County is doing, because it puts a strain on resources, it puts a strain on physical public space. If people are pushed off private land and pushed back into the public, off their own property because of some unconstitutional, declaration. We need to see people actually get involved in what's taking place in Costa County, because if this is allowed here and just everybody looks the other way, oh, it's okay to just push people off their land and completely violate the Constitution, that sets a precedent for more violations. And so as long as you have a callous population that doesn't realize that rights are being violated, that people's attempt to get away from urban city homelessness is actually being straight up sabotaged. And the very fact that I had to come back into a city to do this video is just a part of that experience. It's just a part of that reality. This shouldn't have happened. This shouldn't be happening. People should not be pushed off private property whether they own it or they have permission to stay on it. They shouldn't be pushed back into the city. And now the city wants to push people elsewhere. And cops driving past RVs, maybe they're not going to knock on it, but they're going to try to make me uncomfortable by continuing to drive past the RV. And it doesn't even look like a real police officer. It says Adams State University Security. I don't believe that I'm real close to Adams State. I believe I'm within a few blocks. And so we also are in a day and age where certain officers, security and otherwise, will supersede their own authority, thinking it's their right to tell others they have no rights. So this is really about something far larger. It supersedes the American nomadic movement, supersedes the homeless in the street in the major cities, supersedes those challenges people are going through off the grid. There are people by the millions affected by the same exact issues. The war on poverty. If you don't have enough money to be here, you got to go. You can't be in this residence. You can't be in this house. And now they want to push forward in some areas, say you can't be in your RV self-sufficient because we won't let you be on this land because we created a code saying your kind is not wanted unless you have XYZ tens of thousands of dollars to play ball. Don't tell me this is a conscious, loving society where good men are left to die in the street, when we are turned against each other based on illusions of separation, man versus woman, black versus white, the whole world versus the Islamic world, and every other form of deception, restated the whole world versus the Middle East. Because not everyone in the Middle East is a Muslim or a radical Muslim. It's actually quite hysterical in a not a funny way, but in a psychotic way. What we're seeing in today's world and the hatred being fermented towards refugees that are bombed out of their own homes. We here in America, fortunately for the moment, are able to navigate from point A to point B without being thrown into a concentration camp and without, at least for the moment of time, without being bombed or attacked by drones. But with homelessness being criminalized in some cases and off-the-grid living being criminalized in some cases, where they say if you stay on the land after you're being given a ticket and you go to court, 10 days in jail for every day you stay on that land. And that's how they play ball here in Costilla County. In a conscious society, would people just stand by and just allow Costilla County to just blatantly do that and tell me to stop recording at the Planning Commission as they push people down the street at the county commission meeting saying if you don't move down the street, we're going to arrest you? Notice how this went viral and no one's doing jack shit about it. They're just allowing it to take place. Only lawyers stepping forward though saying, pay me, bitch. Then maybe I'll look at the story. What does it say about our society today? Where is the off the grid? Where is the American refugee experience going? With nowhere to go and nowhere to settle, with people having to resort to stealth camping in public spaces, people promoting living in a Walmart parking lot. I mean, how fucked up is that? If I had a nickel for every time someone said, have you heard about the Walmart parking lot? I mean, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay, so we're not being put into the FEMA camps yet, but you know what? You can stay at a Walmart parking lot. That's their payback for making so many of us homeless, selling us cheap Chinese products that break, and now that shit's not as cheap anymore. Now Walmart's called, but you know what? We know we've taken your homes, we've destroyed your economy, the global corporations. We're going to let you park in our super surveilled Walmart parking lot. Maybe we can keep track of where some of you guys are going and, play a little DHS database game. If you really care about this story, the off-the-grid movement, what's going on in Costilla County, don't just watch this. Share this information, share the relevant news reports, make phone calls, write emails, And if you have ideas for where people can organize on a larger scale, even though this is a decentralized movement, I'm not about centralization of authority and decision making, but powerful websites, petitions, movements, forums, certain things, when they're moderated by the right people, they can bring a whole lot of people together. I've seen what a few YouTube videos can do. A few YouTube videos can take the situation in Costilla County and get it out to the national media. Some aspects of the national media and alternative media may want to report on it. Some may not. Some may not see it as a relevant issue. However, that is only a part of the story. Once we become hyper aware if there's a situation, instead of people being dependent on a few strangers, that might walk into town and say, hey, I can fix all your problems. I just need all of you guys to give me your energy. Things like that happen. Things get sabotaged. We should have measures in place to prevent such sabotage. Whether it be the federal government going into a community saying, we want to see if we can just get these people's interest and direction and put it over here, just as a test. So I am advocating more organization, more of a connection between people living off the grid, because there's power in numbers. And as I close here, we have seen the power in numbers. We have seen the power of the YouTube video. We have seen the power of the media. And so just because we may appear to have lost this battle, and the fact that we had to leave the property we were staying on, we certainly haven't lost the war. People are still reporting on what's taking place, and there are people out there that firmly believe this could be a model for the nation, what's going on with us in Colorado, in southern Colorado, miles from Denver, in what used to be one of the freest places in North America. We need to preserve that, and we need to put our energy together to put the pressure on the county to revoke those unconstitutional codes and measures that say that we can't live in dignity in the comfort of our own vehicle. If they have legitimate concerns about septic, then porta potties sold by the city of San Luis should be okay. But they're not okay, because this isn't really about their concern for the environment. It's them pushing off the new Indians off their land. And what I'm seeing is history repeating itself. And because so many aspects of history have already repeated themselves, I'm concerned for the future of the American refugee. And that's why I think it's very important that people go off-grid instead of being an American refugee in the city. Because this whole campaign against the homeless, even where you have poor people hating on people with less than them because they're off the grid or they're not paying utilities, this degree of slave think and hatred within our own society is what's destroying us. So, truth is, this isn't over. We need to be out there documenting our victory stories, because there are too many people out there against us, and there are too many people out there that are for us that don't believe that we're going to be victorious, that see the federal government and the county governments as being more powerful than the people because of some of the things they've been able to do. We need to think positively about this and intend to come out winners. And I do agree. That this is a microcosm of the macrocosm, what's happening in Costilla County, and that this is a good focal point for people that want to live off the grid to migrate here, become registered voters, and try to change things legally and peacefully within the county to set a precedence and an example for other counties and cities and territories across America, because the people have to have a place to go of rest that they can afford, whether or not in someone else's space, a public space, parked outside their houses. Do the people that own these houses in Portland or other places where they're upset when they're seeing the homeless roll in, are they actually going down to City Hall and saying, I don't like the fact we live in a country and a world where these people just can't be somewhere and not have to park in front of our house? Why can't you just let them be over there, or over there, or over there? Why are you forcing them to be public all the time and be at our grocery stores and be outside our house? The people that live inside those houses, for the most part, are mostly interested in keeping what they've got. And so because they're blind to the issues affecting other people, and because they're not active really in their own community, they bear responsibility as well for their cities being overflowed with homeless people. There are places these homeless people would rather go, or people live in their RVs that are homeless, but are working out of their vehicles, making an income, and they just want to be out of the way. If the American people cannot come together, organize, and get legal help pronto when there's illegal things taking place, how is that a shift in consciousness? What we've got is individual shift in consciousness where people are going off grid and they are defying unconstitutional orders. And the way these things happen, it happens like a movement, where you have a movement of people that are moving forward with something and they're not going to back down, and they're doing it with an energy-filled frequency. Not guns, not spears, not arrows, but an energetic frequency of moving forward. And that's what America needs. America needs unified people that are crossing political and racial boundaries. Socialist, communist, constitutionalist, libertarian, Democrat, Republican, black, white, Middle Eastern, Asian, Hispanic, Native American. People need to cross those racial lines and class lines and political lines and come together.